Today we're going to do a deep dive and analyze the PaddleTek Tempest Wave Pro V3 versus the Tempest Wave V3 non-pro model. By the end of this video, you will decisively know the differences between both of these models and which paddle will best suit your game. We'll also dive into some accurate RPM results, power ratings, sweet spot analysis, and control ratings. So without further ado, let's dink straight into it. The Tempest Wave Pro V3 comes in at $209 and the Tempest Wave V3 non-pro model comes in at $199. I don't have a discount code for these as PaddleTek doesn't do any discounting on their paddles, but you can purchase the paddle using the link in the description of this video if you want to support my channel. Both of these paddles utilize PaddleTek's new iced carbon fiber perma-spin technology, which according to PaddleTek provides a much more durable face and won't wear down as quickly, resulting in high spin numbers for a longer period of time. I took my time on releasing this review because when a manufacturer says something like this, I really want to make sure it's fully tested and STS approved before you spend your hard-earned money on a new paddle. Stay tuned for those results in the spin portion of this review. Brace yourself for a ton of numbers here. All right, here we go. The weight of the non-pro Tempest Wave V3 comes in at 7.4 to 7.8 ounces, whereas the pro version comes in at 7.6 to 8 ounces. The grip length of both models is the same at 5.25 inches, which is a bit shorter than some of the longer gripped paddles we've seen releasing. It is a bit snug for two-handed backhands for sure. You'll have to place your index finger up on the paddle and sort of overlap a touch on your placement here if you're that type of player. I would say a grip length like this is definitely for someone who likes to choke up a touch or just generally prefers a shorter grip length overall. The grip circumference on the non-pro model has two options, the thin grip at 4 inches and the standard grip at 4.25 inches. And the circumference on the pro model also has two options, the thin grip at 4.125 inches and the standard grip at 4.375 inches. All standard grips come with a cushioned tacky grip and all thin models come with a non-cushioned tacky grip. The swing weight of the pro model is 105 and the non-pro model is 110, but this will vary a bit depending on which weight you choose. I will say though, with a low swing weight and the cushioned grip on the standard grip option, this is a dream for anyone with tennis elbow or any issues with joints or shoulder pain. The non-pro model's thickness is 12.7 millimeters and the Wave Pro model has a thickness of 14.3 millimeters. The length and the width are the same though, thankfully, so the general shape is identical. So you could look at this and think, wow, this is a little silly how many variances they have available, or you could give props to PaddleTek for having a ton of different options for different players. Personally, I'm team this is pretty cool and I like the customization options a lot. The two paddles definitely have their unique playstyles and characteristics, which is kind of cool. And keep in mind the large variance in weight is because you can actually choose the desired weight of your paddle down to 0.1 ounces of variance, which is also pretty cool. I think overall I do really like the design of the paddle. I think the artwork on the front looks really well designed and I would say both paddles definitely have a premium feel out of the box. They also have 3 different colors. You have the Platinum, Sunset, and Seafoam. I chose the Sunset for the wave paddles and Seafoam for the rain paddles. Speaking of the rain paddles, they are the elongated Tempest V3 paddles from PaddleTek and you'll see that review releasing shortly after this one, so stay tuned for that. I think the ability to really hone in on small details that you may prefer, like weight, grip circumference, and even the color of the paddle makes the PaddleTek experience fairly unique in the paddle space right now. All right, let's jump into some analytics and see how the spin numbers are stacking up to the competition. So going back to the whole iced carbon fiber perma-spin technology, every time I've gone out to play recently, I took these paddles out and did spin testing with them. I also made sure to play and really rip into them as much as I possibly could. So far, over almost a 2-month period, I'm getting almost identical spin results for spin testing. The spin numbers initially came in at 1900 RPM for the Wave Pro and 1844 RPM for the Wave non-pro model, and up until just yesterday the spin numbers for the pro model were on average 1894 RPM and the non-pro model was at 1832 RPM, so only a few RPM difference over a 2-month period of time. We will have to see how it fares 4, 5, or 6 months down the line, but as of now I have to say these are doing really well and holding up very nicely. The spin for the pro model I would consider top tier. Anything over 1900 RPM is top tier in my books, and the spin for the non-pro model is mid to upper tier. Still really solid generally speaking. To compare these numbers to some of the top paddles in the space, we have the Yola Perseus at 1796 RPM and a price point of $249, and the Selkirk Lab 006 at 1833 RPM and a price point of $333. So it's stacking up nicely as far as larger brand manufacturers of paddles go. Not the highest spinning paddle I've personally tested, but plenty of spin to get the job done and get some solid dip over the net. As far as power goes, both of these paddles are much more control oriented. They're standard shaped paddles, which is a more control oriented shape and design. So for power, the Tempest Wave Pro V3 comes in at 7.5 out of 10 for power and 7.9 for pop, and the Tempest Wave V3 non-pro model comes in at 7.4 out of 10 for power and 8.5 for pop. The non-pro model definitely has quite a bit more pop than the pro model. The pro model feels much more plush off the face. I believe this is definitely due to the difference in thickness. On their website, they're saying there's a more advanced core in the pro model specifically, but I honestly kind of doubt it's much different. I think it really just comes down to the thickness of the paddle. PaddleTek does utilize a carbon fiber polymer composite honeycomb core, which does feel different than a traditional polycarbonate honeycomb core. It feels a bit more plush overall while still maintaining good pop. It feels nice, honestly. It almost feels like a soft wood in a way. I don't know if that makes any sense or translates well, but that's kind of what it reminds me of off the face. Maybe that's an odd comparison, but it makes sense in my head. Slightly more muted and plush. So to compare these numbers to some of the top paddles I've reviewed for power, we have the Valair Mach 1 Forza at 9.5 for power and 8 for pop, and we have the Bread and Butter Filth at 9.5 for power and 8.4 for pop. So definitely more of a control oriented paddle, with the non-pro model having some pretty solid pop to it. If you're the type of player who likes to utilize pop for speed ups or hand battle aggression, the non-pro model is great for that. The sweet spot on the pro model is top tier for sure. The non-pro model has a solid sweet spot, but the pro model has a pretty incredible sweet spot. When I'm playtesting a new paddle for a review, I always let my partner know that I'm testing for sweet spot, and I'll hit a bunch of intentionally off-center shots during gameplay to gauge how well a paddle performs. And the pro model passed this test with flying colors. Plush and incredibly forgiving, again I believe mainly due to the thickness difference and also the carbon fiber polymer composite core, which they both have. As far as a direct rating goes, so you can gauge how this compares to other paddles you might like or already own, the Tempest Wave Pro V3 comes in at 9.2 out of 10, and the non-pro model comes in at 8.3 out of 10. To compare that again to the most expensive paddles in the space, we have the Yola Perseus at 6.9 out of 10 and the Selkirk Lab 006 at 7.2 out of 10. And to compare this to the top 2 ranked paddles I've ever reviewed for sweet spot rating, we have the Groovin' Movin' 13S at 9.3 and the 6.0 Double Black Diamond at 9.1 out of 10. So the pro model takes the category by a pretty large margin between the two, but they definitely both have their pros and cons for specific players. So these paddles really are ultimately made for a control-oriented player. The pro model being the plush reset king with a huge sweet spot, and the non-pro model making dinks and hand volleys a breeze with very minimal effort due to the pop advantage. As far as control goes, the PaddleTek Tempest Wave Pro V3 gets a solid 9.1 and the non-pro Wave V3 gets an 8.6. Dinking and placing your shots are just so easy with these paddles. Drops and any shot you need to get up to the kitchen quick and finish out the point with beautiful consistency is just what these paddles are really made for, especially the pro model. Personally, I find myself leaning more towards the larger sweet spot paddles and consistency, so for me the pro model is kind of where it's at. But if you're the type of player who really loves some good pop and wants to just dominate at the kitchen line for speed ups and hand battles, the non-pro model is made for you. To compare this to the most popular paddles in the space right now, we have the Yola Perseus at a control ranking of 7.4 out of 10 and the Selkirk 006 at 7.3 out of 10. And to compare this to the top 2 ranked paddles in the control category, we have the Groovin' Movin' 13S at 9.6 and the Diadem Edge 18K at 9.5. I think if you want to paddle with a bit of a smaller grip length and a beautiful sweet spot coupled with some really nice tech that seems to maintain solid spin over time, these paddles might just be worth checking out for you. If you want to see the top 5 control paddles of 2023, click here. Have a freaking wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. So I was editing this video and I was playing with my buddy Sam here on the left. Watch this. Somehow he gets that shot. And then just so much pressure with all the topspin rolls. It's just crazy. And then here he's just outplaying them. And he did all this with the Spartus Ballista he was testing out with me. You can check out my review for that. But good stuff, Sam. This was awesome.